Mason Wells has fixed cars in the same garage for 31 years. Same address, same block, same faded blue sign out front. Wells, Auto Repair, the letters brighter once, back before the sun had 30-some summers to work on them. He drives a truck older than his own son, a 1991 Ford, dented on the passenger side, a crack crawling down the windshield he's never bothered to fix. Never saw the point, honestly. $40 for a brake job. That's what it cost in 1995, the year he first hung his own shingle. That's what it costs today. Everybody in town's got a theory about that. Some say he's stubborn. Some say he never learned to run numbers. A few say it quiet, almost like they feel bad saying it. That a man driving a truck like that, wearing the same 3 flannel shirts on rotation, must be barely scraping by. They're wrong. Somewhere in a drawer behind the register, under a stack of old invoices and a coffee mug nobody's washed since spring, there's a plain manila folder. Doesn't look like much. Never has. It's got his name on 11 properties. Not one customer's ever asked to see it. Not one customer knows it's there. And that's exactly how Mason wanted it. This isn't a story about a man who got lucky. No lottery ticket, no stock tip, no cousin who knew a guy. It's about $40. The same $40, charged over and over for 31 years, while something else was happening behind it. Something this town never once thought to look for, because the price on the wall was never the real business. The real business was quieter than that, slower, and it never showed up on any sign. The garage opens at 7, always has. Mason gets there before the coffee shop next door even flips its sign to open. He unlocks the bay doors himself, 3 of them, heavy, the kind that groan when the morning's cold enough. Then he walks the lot, checks the tires on the loaner car, wipes down the counter, even though it was clean when he left it the night before. By 8, the regulars start rolling in. Mrs. Alvarez, with a Civic that needs an oil change every 3 months, whether it wants one or not. Ronnie from the hardware store, who talks too much and tips too little. Some kid with his first car, looking nervous, like he's bracing to get taken for a ride. Mason doesn't take anybody for a ride. That's sort of the whole point of him. He still writes invoices by hand. A carbon copy pad, the kind you can barely find anymore. No card reader beeping at you, no screen flashing upsells. Just a pen, a number, and a handshake, half the time. Watch him work and you'd never guess there was anything else going on. Grease under his fingernails that doesn't come out anymore. Same boots, 6 years running. Same sandwich from home, eaten standing up, leaning against the workbench like it's the only chair he trusts. It wasn't about the money he wasn't charging. People got that part backwards. It was about the money nobody ever saw him keep. Because every night, after the shop closes and the lights go dark and the last regular pulls out of the lot, Mason does one more thing. Something that's got nothing to do with brakes or oil changes or the sign out front. Nobody's seen him do it, not once, in 31 years. Mason didn't learn this from a book. He learned it from a man named Walt, who ran this garage back when Mason was 19, with nothing to his name but a work ethic and a busted transmission of his own. Walt didn't talk much, but he said one thing that stuck. "You don't get rich fixing cars, kid. You get rich keeping customers." Mason didn't understand it then. He understood something else, though. Something older. Something that lived further back than Walt's garage. His father worked the same assembly line for 18 years. Then, one Tuesday, it just wasn't there anymore. No warning, no speech. Just a letter and a box for his things. Mason remembers his mother at the kitchen table that week, running the same math over and over, like doing it again might change the answer. He was 12. He didn't understand mortgages or severance or any of that. He understood the look on her face. And he understood, the vague way a kid understands things, that being needed and being safe weren't the same thing at all. That fear never really left. It just changed shape as he got older. By the time Mason had his own garage, he wasn't scared of going broke, exactly. He was scared of becoming replaceable, of running the kind of shop people visit once, then compare, then quietly leave. So he did the opposite of what everybody told him to do. He kept the prices low enough that nobody ever felt a reason to shop around. Low enough that people brought their kids in, and then their kids brought their kids. Low enough that going to Mason's stopped being a decision. It just became what you did. He wasn't leaving money on the table. He was building something people couldn't walk away from. Carla noticed it before anybody else did. She usually did. "You know, Denny's charging $90 for the same brake job," she said one night, doing the books at the kitchen table, same as she'd done every month for 20-some years now. "You could raise your rates tomorrow and nobody would blink." Mason didn't look up from the paper. "Maybe. That's not a no. It's not a yes either." She'd had this conversation with him before. Different year, same shape. And every time, he gave her some version of the same answer. Steady, unbothered, like the question landed somewhere it wasn't really meant to. What he didn't say, what he almost never said, even to her, was that raising the price was never really about the price. It was about what people would start expecting from him if he did. New equipment, a nicer waiting room, some guy in a polo shirt at the counter instead of a guy in a stained flannel who still writes everything by hand. Start charging like a different kind of shop, and people start treating you like one. And Mason had spent 3 decades making sure nobody looked at him twice. "There's a reason I keep the other book," he said finally. Carla raised an eyebrow. "The yellow one? That one handles the real numbers. This shop was never supposed to make us rich. It was supposed to make us invisible." She didn't push. She'd learned a long time ago that Mason's silences usually meant something was already decided. He just hadn't gotten around to saying it yet. What she didn't know, not the full shape of it, not yet, was exactly how far invisible had taken them. The yellow legal pad lived in the bottom drawer, under a box of spare fuses. Every month, on the last Friday, Mason sat alone at the workbench after everyone left and ran the same quiet ritual. Total the shop's earnings. Pay the 2 guys who worked for him. Cover the lease, the parts, the insurance, and whatever was left over. Never a fortune. Some months barely 4 figures. He moved into a separate account. One Carla didn't touch. One nobody at the shop even knew existed. It started small. A duplex 2 blocks over, bought for almost nothing back in the late 90s, back when nobody wanted to live anywhere near the rail yard. He fixed it up himself, nights and weekends, the same hands that fixed transmissions now fixing gutters instead. Then he rented it out. Quiet, no sign, just word of mouth. The rent came in every month, steady, boring, the kind of money that doesn't announce itself. He didn't touch it, let it sit. And when the next property came up at a price that made sense, he bought that one too. Nobody connected any of it to him. Why would they? He was the mechanic. Same boots, same truck. That was the trick, if you want to call it that. Not hiding the money. Just never giving anybody a reason to go looking for it in the first place. Some nights, sitting there with the pad and a cup of coffee gone cold, Mason wondered if any of it was worth it. $40 a brake job, year after year, while other shops around town doubled their prices and drove home in new trucks. But then he'd think of his father's face at that kitchen table, and he'd close the pad and go home, and none of it would show on him at all. The years did what years do. They passed without asking permission. Ronnie's kid grew up and started bringing his own car in. Missers. Alvarez's Civic finally gave out, and she looked genuinely sad about it, like it was a death in the family, almost. New regulars showed up. A few old ones stopped coming, for reasons nobody said out loud. Through all of it, the sign out front stayed the same. Faded a shade more every winter. The price stayed close to the same too, $40. Then, for the first time in over a decade, $45. A jump so small most people didn't even clock it, and the ones who did just nodded, like it made sense. Behind the register, the yellow pad filled up, then a second one, then a third. The duplex became 4 rentals, then 7. A strip of vacant land near the highway on-ramp, bought for almost nothing, sat quiet for 6 years. until a distribution center went up half a mile away, and the land alone tripled in value, more or less overnight. Mason never bragged. Never once brought any of it up at the shop, not even when a customer complained about rent going up somewhere across town. Rent that, twice, without either of them knowing it, was paid straight into Mason's account. By his early 50s, the man still charging $45 for a brake job owned 11 properties spread across 3 streets, running a business that, on paper, looked like it was barely scraping by. He liked it that way. Liked walking into the hardware store and having nobody straighten up when he came in. Liked being underestimated. It had never once cost him anything. At least, that's what he believed. Right up until the day Eli found the folder. Eli had worked at the shop a little over a year. Good kid. Quick hands, quicker mouth, always asking questions. Mason usually found a way around. That Tuesday, Mason asked him to clean out the back office. A job that had been put off longer than either of them wanted to admit. Boxes of old invoices, a busted space heater, a filing cabinet nobody had opened in years. That's where Eli found the folder. Manila, unlabeled, tucked behind a stack of expired insurance forms. He almost tossed it. Almost. Something made him open it first. 11 property deeds, same name on every single one. Mason Wells. He carried it out to the bay, holding it like it might be a mistake. Like maybe there was some other Mason Wells somewhere in the county records. "Hey, boss, is this you?" Mason didn't answer right away. He wiped his hands on a rag, slow, the way he did everything. Looked at the folder. Something in his face shifted. Not embarrassment, not quite. Something closer to relief, like a breath he'd been holding for 3 decades, finally let go. "Yeah," he said. "That's me. You own the strip mall on Route 9? And the lot next to it? And the building your apartment's in, actually." Eli just stared. $2,400,000. Roughly what it all came to, once you added up the properties, the rental income, 31 years of $40 brake jobs stacked quiet on top of each other until they turned into something nobody could have guessed just by looking at him. "Why didn't you ever say anything?" Mason took the folder back, gentle, closed it, set it on the workbench like it was nothing at all. "Nobody ever asked the right question," he said. "They asked why I never raised my prices. Never once asked what I was doing with the difference. Word got around, the way word does in a small town. A few customers asked about it, half joking, half not. Mason never made a thing of it. Didn't move the shop. Didn't buy a new truck. Didn't change the sign, or the price, or the flannel shirts." The Wednesday after Eli found the folder, Mason was back under a Corolla by 7:15, same as always, grease under nails that don't come clean anymore. Because the money was never really the point. Not the way most people mean it. The point was quieter than that. 31 years of not needing anybody to be impressed. Of building something so boring, so steady, so far beneath anyone's notice that it had time to grow into more than anyone figured a garage on a fading block ever could. Carla asked him once, not long after, if it felt different now that people knew. He thought about it a while before answering. "Not really," he said. "Still wake up at 6, still open the bay doors myself. Only thing that's changed is Eli keeps trying to talk me into a new coffee maker," she laughed. He didn't, not quite. But something in his face came close, because the truth was simpler than anyone wanted it to be. Mason never kept the price low to hide the money. He kept it low so the money would never be the reason anyone came to him, or the reason anyone ever really saw him. He still fixes cars for $45. He still writes the invoices by hand. And somewhere behind the register, there's a new yellow pad, half full, doing exactly what all the others did, sitting quiet, adding up, waiting for nobody to notice.